Guys, welcome to everybody. Really nice to have you here. I think this is going to be an enormously important meeting for us. It's Safe Citizen's first town hall meeting, and I plan to hold many of them. It's a very easy way for us all to communicate around an incredibly important topic. One of the precepts of Safe Citizen is building hope for law-abiding people or law-abiding citizens, and that's really what we aim at doing, is building hope for law-abiding citizens. So Safe Citizen, not specifically a gun owners association. You don't have to own a gun to join Safe Citizen, and we are particularly keen on attracting everybody to join us. Some protocol for this evening, please, if you don't mind. Just a word on language. Apart from the fact that this video is going to be recorded and produced on Zoom and available on YouTube, so it will be broadcast all over the place. We also want to avoid any bad language, and I would like to avoid any personal attacks on anybody that is involved with the legislation or policing or any other aspect of firearms control. The next thing that I want to say to you guys, please, is that when you join the meeting, make sure that your microphone stays off. It's going to avoid disruption for the people that are in the meeting, and it may also spare you the embarrassment of some family stuff being discussed in front of a whole lot of strangers. So make sure that your mic is muted. I have got two co-hosts with me, Ibrahim Mohammed and Sharon Deal, who will be watching that and muting mics as necessary, but it will make things easier for everybody if your mic is muted. When I'm finished basically laying the foundation of the meeting, we're going to open it for discussion. And when you want to discuss something, please raise your hand. Use one of the options on Zoom to raise your hand so that we can see that you have something to say, and if I don't spot it, one of my co-hosts will let me know that you would like to talk. So what I'm going to start off with is a summary of the proposed amendment bill. And I want to point out to you and make it very clear that it is a broad brush summary. I'm only diving into some of the very specific areas that I know will be of interest to many people and that you ought to be aware of. So I'm not quoting chapter and verse, so please don't take it as verbatim. I also want to point out to you that the bill that is presently being released by NEDLAC on the 25th of November, Tuesday, has not been formally released by the government in the Government Gazette for public comment. So the information that you have received, some of you might have received on the internet and on social media telling you that the bill is out and the time is ripe to comment on it, it is not accurate at the moment. The government has not released the bill. And what we are seeing at the moment may turn out to not be the bill, or it might turn out to be the bill. So let's wait and see until that is released. But what we have in front of us is coming from 2021. None of it is a surprise to us, and there are a lot more alarming things than there were in 2021. I'm also going to preface this very short précis or analysis of the bill by telling you that I have it on good authority that the government at high level is very committed to pursuing this bill and pushing it forward. This is not going to be something like 2021, where 118,000 comments on social media or in responses to the government on the bill is going to make the government run away and throw their hands up in the air and withdraw the bill. They are absolutely determined to push this legislation through into South Africa as fast as possible. So with that, I'm going to now move on to taking you through some of the sections of the bill that are especially concerning for me. Right, and I will refer to the sections that that are in the new bill. So, for instance, just to give you an idea, self-defense was always Section 13, and it will still be Section 13 probably, but in the new bill it's referred to under Section 17. So if I quote 17 now, it is according to the new bill. Right. Section 2. Just briefly, the objective of the bill, quite clearly, as stated by them, is to restrict access to firearms by civilians and to comply with regional and international instruments of arms control. They are referring to instruments of arms control around the African region particularly, where there are 16 member states that have signed things like the SADC members. And all of this started off with an attempt to stop the proliferation of light arms, military arms, moving between conflict areas. And it has been, to an extent, hijacked and brought into the civilian use of firearms. And all of a sudden, privately owned firearms and firearms lawfully owned by civilians are now apparently also in this basket. That's Section 2. Section 9 has now got a stipulation that if you are convicted of a crime or have been convicted of a crime with any element of violence, you will not be competent to apply for a license to possess a firearm. Now, none of us support people that can't control violent tendencies owning firearms, but there might have been something, a punch-up at the bar in a rugby club 20 years ago, and it might have resulted in a conviction that is still on a record somewhere with an element of violence. So that is a concern in the main. Section 15, valid reason for license. You have to now produce a valid reason to have a license, and you must furnish proof. What concerns me there is valid. Who decides what is valid? And you're going to see this theme repeated through this bill, where they talk about things, standards of performance that will literally be subjectively evaluated by the police. Section 17, this is the big one, and it refers to the old Section 13. You must now, if you want to possess a firearm for self-defense, and in the 2021 amendments, it said self-defense will no longer be a valid reason to possess a firearm. So they went away and they thought about that after 2021, and they have come back with this clever way of putting things. You must now demonstrate for a self-defense firearm, and that includes retaining your self-defense firearm, that there are exceptional circumstances that indicate a real threat. Okay, so who in the police is going to decide what is a real threat? Is a real threat for somebody that lives in Waterkloof different to a real threat for somebody that lives in Khayelitsha? The level of the real threat. Who in the police or even the applicant is qualified to decide and state what the level of the real threat is when you're motivated? What is it? Is it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 to 10, very serious, maybe serious, I just want to be comfortable at night? What is the level of this real threat? You must demonstrate at the time of the application historic incidents in your life where your safety has been directly under threat. And I'm not talking about, they obviously don't want to know that somebody was going to give you a smack in the parking lot. They want to know that you can demonstrate that your life was in danger. Okay, and historic incidents. You must discuss with them the distance to your nearest SAPS. In other words, if you live right next door to the police station, you've got less of a real threat, apparently. If you live 50 kilometers away from the police station or 5 or 10 kilometers away, maybe the threat level changes according to how far you live away from SAPS. Then you must discuss with them if you have got any other resources that you could use to protect yourself in lieu of a gun. I don't know. Is that a billy club, pepper spray, a caddy, a bread knife, a security gate? What are these other resources that they can say, no, you've got sufficient resources to protect yourself, you don't need a firearm? Then you have got to prove in the application that there is a strong likelihood that all of the things that you have proven above will last for the period of your license application. In other words, if you get a 5-year license for self-defense, if you can't show them that these historic incidents and these threats that we have now discussed are going to definitely last for the next 5 years, and they might actually only last for the next 2 weeks, then you don't get a license. And finally, the catch-all, any other factor that the minister in his sole discretion may from time to time decide to place there as another bar for you to get over before you can have a self-defense license. So there is absolutely no doubt about where they are going with Section 13. And if they don't succeed in making existing section, if this becomes law, if they don't succeed in making existing 13 section license holders come in and hand in their firearms, they will wait until you go to renew your license. And they will simply, on the basis of these things, probably refuse it. So that is the way that they intend to disarm people who have got firearms for self-defense. The new Section 19, which deals with the old Section 15, has gone down from 4 occasional firearms for sport shooting or hunting down to 3. And if you have got any dedicated sports status firearms in your name, let's say you've got 3 dedicated sports status firearms in your name, you may then only apply for 1 Section 15. If you've got 4 dedicated sports status firearms, you can apply for no Section 15. So they are cross-referencing the sections to limit the possession of firearms there. The new Section 20, for dedicated sports status, you may only possess 6 firearms for dedicated sports shooting. And any other licenses that you have, any Section 15 licenses and your Section 13 license that you've got, reduces the amount of dedicated sport licenses that you may hold. So it looks to me like the cap is 6, however you slice it. If your dedicated sports status, maximum is 6. Occasional hunting and sport shooting 3, and self-defense 1, if you can pass that test. Then also under that Section 20, if you want a semi-automatic shotgun for dedicated sports status, you must hold dedicated sports status for 24 months before you can apply for that. Section 21, professional hunters, only 8 firearms. 8, that's it. 27, Section 27, apparently no one under 16 may shoot a firearm. In other words, days of teaching your children to shoot your firearms or to learn to hunt or whatever under your supervision are gone. Nobody under 16. And also, if you are going to use anybody else's firearm under their supervision, they must be 21 years of age and supervising you, of course, directly at the time. Now, Section 28. All guns presently owned, every single gun that you own now, when they publish it in the Government Gazette according to a schedule, whether it's done on last names or serial numbers or types of guns or regional areas or towns or cities or whatever, or dates of birth, you will present your guns to the South African police to be ballistically tested. Every single one of them. So imagine your guns going into the ballistic testing system in SAPS and coming back, who knows? At the moment, when they are not even busy in terms of this type of busyness with ballistic testing in SAPS, at the moment already, you can expect guns to disappear for between 6 and 9 months or more for ballistic testing. So you can imagine when every single private firearm in the country must be submitted for ballistic testing. Imagine your expensive firearms going in there, coming back with missing sights, damaged sights, scratches, and maybe not even coming back to you at all. Also, if you change ownership, if you sell one of those firearms or you buy a second firearm directly from somebody, that also has to be submitted for ballistic testing. Section 37. All firearms in dealer stock at the date that this becomes law must be sent according to a government gazette when they publish that schedule. Every single firearm in firearm dealer stock will have to be submitted for ballistic testing. If a firearm has not been ballistically tested, even if it's a all brand new firearms too, if it has not been sent for ballistic testing, they don't sell it. They can't sell it and you can't buy it. Section 39. It will be an offense to be in possession of any components or apparatus that is used for the reloading of ammunition. That's it. Reloading is finished. No more reloading. You will all shoot factory ammunition. That's it. Section 56, ammunition on the occasional sport shooting and occasional hunting and self-defense has been reduced from 200 rounds to 100 rounds. You may now have a maximum of 100 rounds in your possession. Section 61, here's a very interesting one, and it's the last one that I'm going to go into on the Act. Section 61, ballistics, same for you guys, all official institutions. So as an official institution, I've looked and they don't do it in the definition of this Act or in the definition of Act 60 of 2000. There's no definition for an official institution. But to me, an official institution is police, military, metro, prisons, whatever. Every single one of those firearms also for ballistic testing. Okay. We're not getting into the argument or the discussion tonight about the efficacy of and the efficiency of ballistic testing, but just that this is how they will tie us up in knots. So that is a summary of some of the main issues in the Act. There are many more. I've just, for the sake of brevity tonight, I've just dived into some of the ones that should be concerning you all. And I can just imagine what is being said around the kitchen table in the houses that are tuned into this meeting at the moment. Now, around firearms, whether you do or you don't like firearms, whether you will or you won't, or you have ever or you will ever not own a firearm, if this Act passes, it will dramatically, directly, and permanently affect the security, your own security of your family, the security of your neighborhood, and the community and safety and security in this country. There is absolutely no doubt about it. This also applies to the commercial security industry. Earlier this year, they modeled amendments for the SIRA Act, PSIRA, which is the Security Industry Regulations Authority. And those regulations were so bad for the security industry that they don't even want security officers to carry handcuffs without special written permission. They may not use pepper spray. If they're going after the commercial security officers at that level, can you imagine how they are going after them around firearms and the use of firearms in commercial security duties? And just for anybody, if there is anybody on this meeting that has not connected those dots, those of you that don't possess firearms and that don't want to, and that rely on a paid armed response service, think about the first word of that, armed response service. Because your armed response officer, if these people have their way, will be responding to you with a billy club and maybe pepper spray if he's allowed to. This is all being floated within the context of our crime stats in this country, which are as bad as they have ever been, and a broken police force. This bill will basically strip you even of your armed response, as I said. How this all came about and how NEDLAC, some of you may be aware that NEDLAC has been managing this process on behalf of the government. I had word as early as March 2025 that NEDLAC were busy with this. I heard about it. NEDLAC have been sitting on this bill, this proposed amendment bill, since July, and in secret, they were discussing it with selected corporate partners and the government, the Civilian Secretariat for Police and other entities in the government. A piece of public legislation being discussed by an organization that has a mandate to service the public, and not, by the way, in the safety and security cluster, but in trade and industry. And we finally became aware of it. I became aware of it on the 8th of August, when a BUSA member, Business Unity South Africa, alerted one of the members of the Safe Citizen Alliance of a letter that had come from NEDLAC to BUSA, and they were inviting BUSA members, corporate members, companies, commercial companies doing business in South Africa, that have got no more right than any one of you listening to this meeting tonight to receive this act ahead of time and to debate it and talk about it. They were inviting them to join forums and committees to discuss this firearms control amendment bill. That was done in secrecy. And it was only after the middle of August, and Safe Citizen was the first organization to flag that on social media. And this was closely followed by some of the bigger gun-owning associations. And it was only after that that they got a bit of a shock around being called out on this. First of all, asking them, what are they as a trade and industry organization doing, discussing development of legislation in the safety and security cluster in secret, that they eventually started inviting some selected stakeholders to the NEDLAC hybrid meeting. And the first NEDLAC hybrid meeting, I think, was scheduled for about the 17th, 18th, somewhere around there of November, about the third week of November. And when this was pointed out to them, that actually they didn't have any right to conduct this in secrecy, they didn't have any right to choose selected stakeholders to come and discuss this on behalf of you, the public, they then kicked the can down the road until today, the 4th of December. That meeting was held on the 4th of December, today. There were 331 invitations sent out, again, to selected stakeholders. Not you, the public, selected stakeholders. Of those 331 people, 66 people attended the meeting. 66. Safe Citizen didn't attend. I refused to validate their illegitimate forum by attending it. Safe Citizen didn't attend, but 66 people were there. Nevertheless, NEDLAC are going to try to tick that box and say, we have conducted stakeholder engagement. We can now move forward with this bill to Parliament after they have deliberated it and made any changes. Interestingly enough, and I'm not going to get into a lot of detail there, they put out a concept note with the invitation to the meeting. And in that concept note, they talk about the rationale and the final position of government. What does that mean? That means that they have already made up their mind about what should be in the bill and what the bill will look like when it gets submitted to Parliament. Rationale and final position of government. What does that mean, final position? It means, actually, we're not talking to any of you about it. We've made up our mind what we're doing. The mood is changing amongst the citizens of South Africa. The Democratic Alliance, for instance, has come out with a statement, a very firm statement against this bill. I don't think it will be long before the other political parties follow suit, although they will probably be waiting for the official launch of the bill in the Government Gazette. There is a lot of talk on social media about it and a lot of activity in and around the gun-owning associations. And the people that are on this meeting this evening, the majority of them have arrived here as a result because of some connection with a gun-owning association or somebody who is connected, a member of a gun-owning association. So I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater with my next comment. The gun-owning associations are very important. The formal shooting fraternity is very important. However, I did some math, and I took the gun-owning associations that I know of and the ones whose membership I have an idea of, and I estimated their membership and added it up. And then I arrived at a figure of about 135,000. And then I doubled it to 270,000 for the ones that I didn't know about and the ones whose members I might have underestimated, although many of them came back to me and said, you vastly overestimated our members. The point that I'm making is that 270,000 people is 0.43% of the 64 million people in South Africa. And that 0.43% comprises mainly people who already own firearms. The same group of people that this government have decided that they intensely dislike in terms of their ownership of firearms. The same group of people that this government has already decided that they don't care what your opinion is. Because if they cared about your opinion from 2021, they wouldn't have brought back the same bill from 2021 just with lipstick on it. So that 0.43%, all of us, all of the people that own firearms lawfully in this country and who participate in sport shooting or shooting clubs, are of no concern to the government. They're not interested. This is not what gets their attention. And the missing voice is the voice of the public. First of all, you, as members of the public in your own right, have not been invited to partake in this process as stakeholders. You have not been invited to comment on the development of this legislation. And when it comes out, I can guarantee you that the comment period will be 30 days. And if you're lucky, it's not going to happen on the 20th of December this year until the 20th of January, which is what this government does when they want to push legislation through while the legal fraternity is on holiday and while most of the people in the country are on holiday. That is generally when they do it. I have a background in standing up to environmental legislation, and I have seen many times how they do that round about the 20th of December, just before December holidays. So at most you'll have 30 days, and if we are not fortunate, it's going to be over that December period. So you are the missing voice as the public, and the real public are the missing voice here, and the most important voice. Okay. You are the silenced public, and that silenced public is 99.57% of all people in South Africa. Now, in the background and rationale for this act, the state claims that they are doing it for public safety. They want to reduce crime, they say. They want to make South Africa safer, they say. But actually, this is an obsession. And now I'm going to get political because this is political. It is an obsession of the African National Congress of disarming this populace. They want to have control and they want power at all costs. In 2021, in the KwaZulu-Natal uprising, that was put to bed by armed private citizens standing side by side in the streets, protecting even police stations and government installations like water and electricity substations. The state here, the ANC, were treated to a first-hand demonstration of the power of private people standing together as lawfully armed citizens. And while it suited them at that time of that almost insurrection in 2021, it was not a demonstration that sat well with them, because it demonstrated to them that if they lose control of this country, the population, they've got a problem. So what can we do about it to activate the voice of the public? Safe Citizen is going firmly after the voice of the public. I'm not positioning Safe Citizen as a firearms owning association. I'm not positioning it as a group of people that own firearms. The name was chosen with care. Safe Citizen means you are for community safety. The people who are against guns in this country, those of them that have the unfortunate names, that will never come to pass in this country, cannot argue with the name Safe Citizen. If they argue, and they cannot argue that we are an association of gun owners, and if they argue against us, I have a simple question for them. Are you for or against community safety? And if their answer is, I am for community safety, my answer is, come and join us. It's for free. So Safe Citizen is a perfect vehicle to carry the voice of the public in this issue. The other very good news that has been of enormous comfort to me is a formal alliance with Dear South Africa, Rob Hutchinson. Dear South Africa gathered and carried forward to government the majority of the proper submissions that were made to the government on the previous act in 2021, 118,000 of them. And the way that Dear South Africa does it is not like signing a petition. When you submit or you subscribe to Dear South Africa and you use their platform, your letter from whoever you directly goes directly and individually to the government as a direct submission from you around the specific act with all of the comments. Dear South Africa has got a reach into 1.5 million South African households. And this campaign is going to be carried forward by Dear South Africa with Safe Citizen branding, and we will work together on it. So before we get into the question and answers, I'm going to encourage you guys to get onto Safe Citizen. We are very easy to find. All of you know how to find a website, safecitizen.co.za. It's easy to find your way around there. It's easy to join us. It's for nothing. There's a very basic set of questions which has got very minimal information about you if you would prefer not to have information recorded. And for those of you that want to record more information about how you feel about certain aspects of gun control or whatever, you can answer those questions. It's completely voluntary. But get onto the Safe Citizen website and sign up and join us. You will get onto our mailing list. You will receive an email usually once a week from Safe Citizen with this type of comment. Our latest videos, our latest information, and the facts around the Firearms Control Act and other aspects that affect you around your firearm ownership and possession. Also, please go onto dearsouthafrica.co.za. Please note, it's not any other type of Dear South Africa, dearsouthafrica.co.za, and click on the little link that says subscribe and just register yourself there so that you get onto their mailing list, so that when they start sending out stuff around this campaign and other very important laws that are being discussed and passed, you will find out about them. This will help you to make your voice heard in the right places. And then finally, spread the word, do more of this. If you have come into this through an invitation from somebody else and you would like your community in the town or the village or the city where you live to have one of these meetings, especially for them, please let me know and we'll do it. The facilities are there. This is paid for by Safe Citizen. I managed to do it with donations and people that assist us to keep in the game. And let me know. And I don't mind. I will do a Zoom meeting like this for one person. I'll do it for 5 people. I'd love to do it for 5,000 people. So please let us know. You're very welcome. And I want to finish off before I open for questions and answers, to say to you, we must be heard and we will be heard. We must be heard and we will be heard. But you have to use your voice. Please don't rely on other people to carry it across for you. I'm now going to open the floor for questions. I either told the things in such a good way that you've got no questions, or there's a whole lot of people with stage fright. Don't be scared of the camera. I can assure you it's not that bad. Nick Schwartz, let me push your button if you're still around. You've always got an opinion that's useful.
I think Nick's having problems with comms. He's on and off, on and off.
Okay. Any
Jonathan,
questions, guys?
Jonathan, it's Rian here, Fortis Proactive Defense Solutions. How are you?
Hello, Rian. I recognize you.
Good.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just tuned in now because I just finished one of my videos for the Fortis YouTube channel. So I obviously now missed the whole thing. But a question that I've been getting is, what happens now? Because we now know that they've now released this, NETLAC has released this, and people are starting to realize what's going on. What is the next step in this process in order to be able to effectively fight this thing?
I think that there are two legs to that, Rian. Thanks for that question. We discussed some of this last week when you interviewed me as well.
Yes.
There are two legs to this. The one is the social media and the public side, and we don't have to wait for anything. Let's get moving on that. Get involved with Safe Citizen, even as a member for free. Get subscribed to Dear South Africa, and start speaking about it in your communities, speaking about it in your workplace, speaking about it in your family, at a braai, at a sporting event, in the till, in the queue to the till in the shopping center. Speak about it there. The other thing that you can, and that is the way to start building up the muscle there. There's no point in signing petitions at the moment and commenting on the bill, because we don't have the final bill released. Remember that the bill that we have seen is only released by NETLAC to their secret birthday party list, the people that they would like to invite. Let me give you an example of how selective they are with their invitations. There's an organization in South Africa that has got, I think, around about 350,000 members. It is an organization that is an enormous thorn in the side of the African National Congress. It is AfriForum. AfriForum was not invited as a stakeholder to this NETLAC meeting. How can you have a discussion on the development of legislation at this level, and you are locking out stakeholders like that? How can you call that stakeholder engagement? So those are the people that have been locked out of the secret process. It is why Safe Citizen has labeled the process from early August as illegitimate and inappropriate. And it is why Safe Citizen did not attend their meeting today. I refuse to be involved there and will not lend credibility to that meeting by attending it. They will have to have proper public consultation, and we need to force them to have proper public consultation. Does that answer?
How do we get to that point? Yes. How do we get to that point that we apply sufficient pressure to them to force them to actually come to the table and start having proper public consultations?
When the bill is passed for comment or released for comment in the Government Gazette, it is the opportunity to formally address them. And I would imagine that what we will do with Dear South Africa is sit down and design a series of steps that you can go through as a member of the public, where you fill in your objections. There will be sample paragraphs that you can use to say to the government, as far as you're concerned, the public participation process is missing in action. Anything that seemed to hint that it was stakeholder engagement was illegitimate and inappropriate, and that the public needs to be properly consulted. There are a number of areas of law in the Constitution where the state needs to be aware of the proper precepts of public participation, and they are very powerful, and they are backed up by case law in the Constitutional Court. And the ANC are aware of this, and they know about it. And I've used it against them before in other fights with around environmental legislation. So there will be time, and there will be time. And I can tell you now that the formal gun-owning associations and other formal elements of the firearms fraternity will be briefing council and around these issues, and if necessary, preparing to take them through the court process. Interdicts, High Court, Supreme Court of Appeal, Constitutional Court, wherever it leads to. So it may be quite a significant court case at one stage. We want to try and get away from it. However, we'll have to see what we can do in terms of standing up to that, but there will be enough opportunity to do that. And also, it will be presented to Parliament. It has to go through the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee for Police, and there will be an opportunity there to debate it again. So it is not a given that it's going to go ahead, but as I started out at the beginning of this meeting, and you wouldn't have heard it, there is reliable information that this bill has got strong support at the highest levels of government. They are determined to push this through. They are not going to run away with it like 2021. Okay. Thanks for your questions, Rian.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Jonathan, it's
Yes.
Thabiso Ramatala here speaking.
Hello.
First of all, thank you very much for the presentation. I think this is quite important that we all engage. I have sort of a three-tiered question, and maybe a suggestion later on. As we stand now, we are at the pushback outside of a court setting. That is, we are not at litigation yet in terms of pushback, right? But that's the first assumption I'm making here.
Correct.
So I'm just going to move forward and say, assume at this stage we now need to engage in a litigation. Now we're pushing back using the system. The first question, or rather the first suggestion is, at litigation stage, we have two avenues we need to push back on. The first one is the engagement of a broader stakeholder. That's one, which is non-existent. And we can prove that as you have presented. That is the one pushback avenue.
Yeah.
The second one is the rationality of these provisions now. That's the second pushback.
Yep.
So I'm making those assumptions. Here are my questions. How do we support the first stage, which is now, this engagement as we're speaking outside the court? How do we support now the pushback from a litigation point of view to say, okay, now we need to take it back. Gloves are off. We need to go to court. We need, obviously, it is physical support, but most importantly, financial support. This will require some serious financial muscle. Because, as you said, this is not the first time they've done this. They will not stop until they face a stronger, muscle standing from a legal perspective, which is why I'm introducing two pushback scenarios. First, the consultation of broader stakeholders. Second, the rationality of these amendments. I'm not sure if I have made my point, but you can respond to that, Jonathan. And thank you again.
Thank you very much, Toby. You have made your point perfectly, and very good questions for everybody to listen to. Around the public consultation issue, we can start pushing that immediately in the social media. And I finished off by saying we must be heard and we will be heard. And we can, as a public, we can adopt that slogan and we can use it everywhere. We must be heard and we will be heard. So that's just raising the issue around the lack of public consultation. When the bill is released in the Government Gazette for comment by the public, that is when the public can say, we were not consulted, there's been no stakeholder engagement. We are given 30 days to comment on highly technical legislation, which has enormous, far-reaching effects on our personal safety and our community, particularly given the crime situation and the manner in which we are exposed to crime in this country. The second point that you raised was rationality. And it's a point that I'm very fond of raising, because there is a requirement in terms of the promotion of administrative justice, and that is rationality. And something that goes along with that is, if legislation becomes unenforceable because it is irrational, it can become unenforceable. And what we are hearing in South Africa, and I want to be very clear about the fact that I am not making any type of suggestion in this vein at all. I'm just repeating what I have heard and read on social media, is that the people that I have heard from, without exception, from all walks of life and all levels of the shooting community, have been very clear about the fact that they will not surrender their firearms. So the state may be creating a problem for itself where it has floated irrational legislation that is unenforceable. As far as the money is concerned, you're absolutely right. When one goes into court at this level, you're going to be briefing counsel and senior counsel and junior counsel and an attorney. You could probably be spending 20,000 Rand an hour in the offices just with the briefing and the consultations, never mind days in court. So it's big money. There are a lot of vested interests amongst the gun owning associations, and many of those gun owning associations have financial muscle to an extent based on your membership of them. And at the point in time where they start saying, we are going to support this or that initiative in terms of taking this matter to court with the government, that is your opportunity of the gun owner in the street to stand up, or anybody actually, and support them and contribute to a war chest. And of course, if you talk about big numbers of people, the money that we can get together racks up very quickly. 100 Rand from 10,000 people, I think, is R1 million. So it doesn't take a lot of money, or it doesn't take a lot of people to get the war chest together, but it's going to be a sustained effort. But I want to thank you for your questions. I really enjoyed them, and I'd like to encourage you to stay in touch with me. And I wonder if there's an opportunity to speak to the community, your business or your social community as well. Please let me know. I have got two questions. Thank you. I've got two questions that came up, I think, on the chat that were passed across to me here. Did the matter of green licenses come up? Yes, it did. I haven't applied my mind to looking at what the new act says about green licenses. At the moment, there's a judgment from 2009 with Judge Prinsloo, where green licenses are still completely valid as the day that they were issued, but I would imagine that they will be going after that at some stage in the future. I must confess that I have not, as I said to you, I just dived into some of the bigger issues on this act, but green licenses did come up. Collectors, I do recall seeing something that I think seriously affected collectors. I don't think they're happy about collectors at all. I did see that you cannot be, I think, a collector of a specific theme of firearms and be a collector of ammunition if the ammunition fits the firearms that you collect. So a lot there for collectors, and it's strange because the collectors are probably the most organized, the most stringent, the most diligent and careful group of gun owners in this country. They are absolutely no problem to anybody in terms of what they do, and they preserve a very valuable heritage in South Africa. The other question that was asked was, can NEDLAC's approach be challenged as unconstitutional? I don't know. Interestingly enough, I was taken to task by a member of the shooting community when I had a go at NEDLAC in the social media. And in fact, I was echoing the sentiments of Damien Enslin, a specialist firearms attorney and the chairman of SAGA, who at first alerted me to the inappropriate role of NEDLAC in this whole thing. So can NEDLAC's approach be challenged as unconstitutional? I don't know. Certainly, I think the secrecy surrounding it, the selective stakeholder engagement, and the fact that the general public and organizations with the membership and reach of AfriForum being locked out of stakeholder engagement, I think is a serious problem. I'm ready. Andy, let's hear from you.
Hello, is that any better?
Yeah, I got you, Andy.
Sorry, I've got a very poor signal. Cool. I've got a very poor signal tonight, but thank you, Jonathan, for putting the meeting together so quickly. Really appreciate it. The two things that I would like to just quickly underline there for you. One of the things that you mentioned, and I think it needs underlining, is the fact that people need to get out there speaking about safety and secure citizens and all those good things. For example, this meeting that we're having tonight, there are approximately 76 people online that I can see. I know for a fact that I have put the link under at least 5,000 people's noses. Okay, let's divide it as you've divided numbers there and say the groups that I'm involved with are probably overlapping. Let's take it down to 1,000 people, being gun owners, gun owner associations, community members in and around my area, other areas of interest. Let's say 1,000 people, and here we are sitting 76 or 78 people. That was the one thing. The other thing that I noted, I was also very fortunate. I got a copy of the document that we're not supposed to be allowed to see just yet. And the other thing that I noted in there is it looks to me like all sales of weapons going forward, if the bill is passed, will have to go through a dealer. Obviously, that's problematic for a number of people.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jonathan, once again. We'll chat again later.
Thank you very much, Andy. And just for everybody to know, it was through Andy contacting me that this meeting actually happened tonight, and that the idea of town hall meetings finally came together. Now, I'd like to put a challenge out to everybody here, excluding Andy, because he's already stepped up to the plate. 77 people, let's have 77 town hall meetings. Contact me and say, we want you to come and talk to our community about community safety. Let's do it. It's not costing any of us any money. Most of us are doing it from the comfort of our homes, and Safe Citizen has paid for the facilities. 77 people, 77 town hall meetings. Let's get started on it. And it doesn't matter. I said to you guys in the beginning, I will do it for 5 people. I'll do it for 1 person. I never know who that 1 person is that will turn out to be an enormous influencer in this fight. And what motivates me? Yes, I'm a firearms instructor. Yes, I own an academy. Yes, I have a lot of firearms and I love shooting. But I'm absolutely motivated by an unfair fight. And we are facing an unfair fight. This legislation is just another reflection of the legislation that we have seen coming out of this government in the last year. Let's hear from Nathan. Nathan, you're up.
Hi there, Jonathan. Sorry, man, I was trying to unmute it there.
No problem.
Yeah, I mean, I was obviously with you saying with the collectors, and they're the least threat to the country. I mean, obviously, all us gun owners, I mean, we do the research and we obviously know what goes on. So, I mean, for a normal citizen, I mean, they should be made aware of like all the guns that come in from Namibia, the AK-47s and the Uzis that are getting smuggled in through the borders. And then obviously all the firearms that get stolen or rented out by the police, you know. I mean, that's all silenced news. I mean, obviously we all know about it, but I mean, your general oak in the street, I mean, he doesn't know about that.
Well, I think it's up to us to make them aware of it. It's up to us, Nathan, to make them aware of it. And I agree with you entirely. We all understand that the problem doesn't lie with lawful gun owners. We just happen to be the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
This legislation, it's just completely irrational and unenforceable. And the thing that apart from the Section 13 stipulations, the thing that pushes it even further over the edge is the ballistics testing. Can you imagine? Who of us is going to walk into a police station with our self-defense firearm that we rely on for our protection and hand it in so that it can go away for ballistics testing for 6 months?
I mean, even if it is 6 months.
Yeah, if it is 6 months. So
Yeah.
point well made. Thank you for that, Nathan. I appreciate it. I have a question before I take the ones on the screen. This is were numbers on Section 20 for training providers discussed, and were the number of bodyguards per client discussed. Again, I didn't look at it specifically in the context of the new act or the new proposals. There was talk about Section 20, and there was talk about training providers, but I think it will be very difficult for them to make those changes. Bear in mind that the commercial security industry is 4.5 times the size of SAPS. And that is something else that makes the government very nervous. But somebody has to train them. And the police can't train them. And the military can't train them. And maybe I can just toss in something here that you guys might know, might not know, or some of you will know it. The police now do their Section 20, their Regulation 21 shoot, which tests their proficiency to handle a firearm once every 5 years. The Honourable Becky Chele changed it from every year to every 5 years. That is 45 rounds. It's a qualification shoot of 45 rounds. So the policeman that responds to your home tomorrow could possibly have fired his firearm 4 years and 353 days ago. Okay, so that is why the commercial security industry is so important to us, and why the government doesn't like it very much. Okay, so that's Section 20. Let's go to Kobus Pienaar, please, and then Chris after that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for the presentation and for everybody present. John, Mike, I have two questions. The one is about our posture. We're taking a defensive posture in terms of this provocation. If we are building local alliances, are we building international alliances, not just around firearm ownership, but around community safety? I think, as an example, I look at the recent success from people like AfriForum going abroad with a sustained effort and building a broad front of opposition in terms of minority rights in South Africa. Now, we're not talking about minority rights here, we're talking about safety of every single citizen. So that's question one. Are we looking at building international linkages here that we can leverage? And then my second question is, instead of just taking a defensive posture, is there some offensive posture we can take? And I'm thinking in terms of identifying the protagonists in bringing this whole palaver into a proposed bill. Who sits behind this? It's easy to say a faceless, nameless ANC is driving it, but there are definitely specific interest groups and specific individuals driving this. I think it's time that we name those, identify them, and then as a strategy is to counter their specific aims and their specific postures, not just as a broad opposition, but to be specific and have some surgical interventions there.
Kobus, thank you for those two questions. In terms of the international alliances, I have a lot of contact personally in my personal capacity in the shooting fraternity with various pro-shooting people in the United States, but not necessarily with government or civil organizations there. It's probably a job for somebody with the legs and the money and the profile of an AfriForum. So Safe Citizen is not there yet. I have, in fact, just today received an invitation to an American TV show to go and appear there and be interviewed around this issue. But the Americans have got their own problems around this, and South Africa is another world away. But certainly, we have seen the success of taking issues that are grossly unfair and an attack on minorities, and that possibly affect the safety and security of minorities. We've seen good results in that getting into the media and the international attention of late. So yes, I think that that's something that can be done, and I will be alive to it as much as possible. But there may be people on this group tonight that have got that type of reach, or know people that have got that sort of reach. With regards to taking a more offensive position and actually trying to identify and weed out the people that are driving this, I am absolutely convinced to my core that what we are seeing comes out of the National Democratic Revolution of the ANC, that it dovetails with their aim to reduce South Africa to a socialist state. They would like to obliterate the middle class. If you look at some of the legislation that is being passed in South Africa and the discriminatory nature of it and the far-reaching implications that it has for all South African citizens, it is absolutely clear that this is an ideological push, and you cannot debate ideology with logic or statistics. There's only one thing that will change their mind, one legal thing that will change their mind, and that is proper public participation and their voters speaking to them. The only thing that gets the attention of the ANC is their voters, nothing else. And in many cases, they actually don't seem to care too much about their voters either. So I hope that that answers that a bit, Kobus. If you've got ideas and you are in touch with groups or you can think out of the box, I'll be delighted to engage on that. Chris, can I come to you, please? Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for putting this together, Jonathan. Really, really appreciate it. The opportunity to ask questions. With regards to opposing the irrationality of the bill, what are we bringing in terms of offering a more rational solution to stricter or more responsible firearm laws, put it that way? Because obviously the stakeholders, policymakers have to be seen to be making a difference. You know, you've got a dissatisfied citizenry. What are we bringing to the table? Do we have anything that we can propose as alternatives to their irrational suggestions?
I think we do. Thank you for that question. It's very important. We do. The first thing is that we can respond to them by educating them and educating the public, and the public educating themselves, public educating each other, to the point that they understand that the problem with crime and criminality and violent crime in this country is not perpetrated by lawfully armed citizens. And in a very small percentage of cases, crime is perpetrated using firearms that used to be licensed. The majority of the unlicensed firearms, we all know where they come from. The biggest sources are over our borders, sources that are left over from arms caches that were brought into this country pre-1994 by most of the political parties involved pre-1994. Firearms that have been handed in amnesties that have been sold to gangsters, firearms that are coming from Namibian police stores into the Cape Flats to the gangsters there, military weapons that are lost. When a military guardhouse is attacked by 3 gangsters armed with Okapi penknives, they leave there with R5s and R4s and ammunition. So that's the first thing, is to educate the public and by extension the policymakers that it is not the private citizens that are the problem. The second leg of that, I've forgotten just the second leg of your question was what are we bringing to the table? Oh, the other thing that we can do is insist that the police enforce the law properly. We have world-class firearm legislation in this country. Act 60 of 2000 is one of the most stringent pieces of firearm legislation in the world. All that they need to do is enforce it properly and fix the shambles at the Central Firearms Register and do their work properly and empower the designated firearms officers at the police stations to do their work properly. So I hope that that answers your question. I think, and I'm going to recap for you, we need to educate our own public, our own brothers and sisters in the public, and policymakers and decision makers around the fact that it's not the lawful firearm owners and the licensed gun owners that are the problem. And we need to insist that the police actually do their work in crime and also enforce the firearm legislation properly. Before I go to Nathan again and Jock P, someone has asked to repeat the section on ballistics just briefly, with pleasure. The new section 28, all private guns owned, when the minister decides to put it out in the government gazette, whether he decides to do it by dates of birth or towns and cities or your surname, all guns owned at present will be submitted to the police for ballistic testing. Every single one of your private firearms, even if you bought it brand new, even if another person has never shot it, even if it has been in your possession its whole life, will be submitted for ballistic testing. That goes for change of ownership too. And then section 37, ballistics, all firearms in dealer stock. Imagine, and I'll just go into a bit of a commercial thing here because we all know them and they're one of the biggest, Safari Outdoor. Imagine every single gun in one Safari Outdoor store being submitted for ballistic testing. Who's going to manage that, and what is the point? And then finally, section 61, all official institutions, which to me means police, military, metros, national parks, prisons, airport security, all official institutions, their guns also tested for ballistics. So we're probably going to have one of the biggest ballistics divisions of any country in the whole world if this stuff comes to pass. And for the person that asked for the repeat on ballistics, you might also have missed section 39. No reloading. You may not be in possession of a single reloading component, powder, primer, a bullet, a brass case, and you may not be in possession of a press. You will not reload ammunition. From now on, you will shoot factory ammunition. Okay, let's go to Jock P.
Good evening, Jonathan.
Hi, Jock.
Sorry, my broken English. I'm actually an Afrikaans speaker.
I recognize the voice now. That's Jock Potgieter.
That's correct.
Thank you very much for 1,000 Rand donation to Safe Citizen.
Not a problem. Jonathan, you mentioned that on section 13, they're going to look at a viable reason for owning a section 13, and that the police, depends on how close you live to the police, that might be subjective to this.
Correct.
I live in a little small town in the East Rand, and a couple of years ago, I can't remember the exact year, we had a shootout in our police station where a police officer actually lost his life. And from then up to date, they've got private security guarding the police.
Yep.
Because they can't do, if you phone, never a vehicle. I had an incident at my place of my house whereby they tried to break into my brother-in-law's vehicle inside my yard. Phoned the police, took them 1 hour and 25 minutes. When they got here, I asked them, let's do a search of the perimeter. And in actual fact, the police officers asked me to walk in front of them, legally armed, to do a perimeter search. They were too afraid to do it. So who's going to protect us if this bill comes through?
That is exactly the question, Jock, and I think you have asked the question that many people are thinking. There were quite a few people that joined after the beginning of the meeting. I'm just going to go very briefly through the old section 13, the new section 17. For a self-defense license, you must demonstrate that there is a real threat. So how are you going to tell your DFO what a real threat is? And how is your DFO going to decide whether you are really threatened? Is a real threat for Mrs. Jones, who is 70 years old and lives alone, the same threat as for Peter Jones, who is 20 years and lives with his family? The level of the threat, you've got to qualify that and convince the DFO of the level of the threat. You've got to show the DFO that there have been historic incidents in your life in the recent past where your life has been in danger, and prove those. You can't just say somebody drove past my house and pointed a gun at me. You've got to prove it. You've got to discuss any other resources. So if your DFO comes to your house and he says, but you've got steel gates and burglar bars, you don't need a gun, that protects you enough. And there in the corner you've got a baseball bat. So there's your other resources to look after yourself. And then you have got to prove to them that there is a likelihood that the threat that you are raising in support of your Section 13 application will last for at least the next 5 years. What are you now? A risk manager? And is the DFO a risk manager to assess your threat? And then finally, there's a catch-all. Any other factor that the minister at some point in time decides to add to these already difficult conditions, impossible conditions for Section 13. Thank you for your question, Jock. Let's go back to Nathan. Sorry, not Jock. Yes, it was Jock. Let's go back to Nathan.
Hi there, Jonathan. Yeah, just to, touch base with what Chris said and what Jock said, and also what you said now. So it's 3 points. Yes, so one point with the safety and that. I read an article where in the world, South Africa's got the most employed police officers in the world. One of the highest police officer counts in the world. That's one point that I read up there. And then obviously, yeah, with you saying the crime, or what's it? Yeah, like a crime where you got to now become the police have got a department where they like risk management, but
Yeah.
they determine the figures, and now you need a degree on that in order to
Yeah.
motivate your own self-defense license.
They want to become risk managers. I'd
Yeah.
like you off group here at some stage after this meeting to go and revisit your statistics, because I'm not sure that we have the highest employment of police officers in the world. I think the city of New York has got more police officers than the whole of South Africa, and you can check me on these statistics. And we are
That's
also
probably one of the highest.
Yeah, we are also under strength, as far as I know, by tens of thousands of police officers, generally under strength, because of the way that the police service bleeds police officers, because of the very poor career path that these officers are offered. But I would like to encourage you to go and research that and come back to me, and I will flesh that out in an email when our next Safe Citizen email goes out. Thank you for that.
Perfect.
Chris,
Cool.
let's go with you.
Thanks once again. Just an observation on my side. With these proposed requirements in order to be approved to possess a firearm for self-defense and to defend your own life with proportionality and necessity to a threat being leveled against it. I had a look at every case on the gender-based violence drive at the moment, all the women's cases that they put up there. And going through all of them, hardly any of them would have qualified to own a firearm when I read the cases with regards to the requirements that they want. So if you take the requirements now, which they're proposing, and you go back and you apply it to all the cases, all the fatalities, hardly any of them would have qualified to possess
Yeah.
a firearm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're all dead,
Yeah.
So, that's a disturbing
Thank you.
point.
An extremely powerful point. I'm actually going to make a note of that, GBV quali. That's excellent. Thank you. That's a brilliant point.
Because it's also been sort of like, I did a mini sort of study on these laws being implemented in a lot of Commonwealth countries, and often it's driven through using emotive cognitive campaigns and not rationality. So they'll use an emotional drive to support steamrolling in a law,
Exactly.
which will provide very little resistance from,
Exactly.
the rest of everybody.
Yeah, that's why we need to be awake. But I'm picking up a very nice statistical evaluation from you, and where you get into facts and statistics. And I would like to encourage you to please keep in touch and let me know about directions that you would like Safe Citizen to explore. Thank you,
Sure.
Chris. Nick Swartz, nice to see you on the group. Nick, I'm going to unmute you. Okay. You there, Nick? Unmute yourself.
Hello, Jonathan. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Nice to hear from you.
Thank you, Jonathan, for putting this up together. I'm just a little bit disappointed not more people are attending, but it's up to people like myself to spread the word. Just a little bit of a background. I don't think 5 years ago people would have imagined the situation that we are in now, nor could they imagine the situation that we had in Durban with the riots in my own neighborhood. My concern, and something I get asked every day, is this. What if we get to a stage, and I live literally less than a kilometer away from the police station. The DFO has been to my house several times. He knows exactly how many firearms I have, where I have, and what do I have, and how many safes I have. And they knock at your door one morning at 5:30, because I like to do this early in the morning. And they say, Mr. Schwartz, we are here to collect your firearms. What are we going to do? I can tell you one thing, I am not giving them a single one of my firearms. Now, we think this may be a conspiracy theory, or this will never happen to me, but I'm sorry, I'm one of those people that will always assume the worst. Okay, Jonathan, thanks. Just your input will be appreciated.
Yeah, Nick, you know that I can't go into detail on answering that question, because it's going to take Safe Citizen into a province where we don't want to be. It is very important that Safe Citizen is seen as absolutely on the side of law and order, as opposed to the illegitimate and secret process that we have seen gathering against lawful firearm owners. So we have got to work very, very hard at this before it gets to that point. Obviously, that point can only arise if they manage to pass that legislation. We have got to stop the legislation being passed. And
yes.
that brings me to something else, is that when we are faced with these type of laws, whether it's a national health initiative or expropriation without compensation, or the Firearms Control Amendment Bill, we tend to go into analysis paralysis and focusing on how are we going to withstand this bill point for point, which we have to do. It is absolutely necessary to do that. But what we are not doing is we are not going after the elephant in the room. If I had have gone to that meeting at NEDLAC today, either virtually or in person, I would probably have only got to ask 2 questions before they silenced my mic. One was, you people, you well-paid civil servants that are paid with our tax money, Were you smoking your socks when you accepted from your masters in the government the instructions to draft this bill and the instructions to discuss it in secret and the instructions to roll it out? Have you got no sense of fairness and rationality in law and order that you will lend yourselves and your names to something like this? It is a disgrace, because I don't believe they're stupid, and they know that when they go home tonight, and I hope that there might be one or two of them watching this broadcast tonight, and I hope if they're not, that they will be seeing the YouTube clip of this. But they ought to be ashamed of themselves, because at the level of NEDLAC and the Civilian Secretariat for Police Services, with whom Safe Citizen used to have a memorandum of understanding and with whom Safe Citizen used to work closely, if they had the guts to turn around at the time that those instructions were given to them by the National Executive Committee or the Minister of Police, and have said to them, "Sir, with respect, are you mad? Have you seen the crime stats? What do you think you are going to achieve by disarming the public in this country? Where does this instruction come from? I'm not going to carry it forward. Fire me. Fire us all." And they would probably have been able to stop this lunacy there. So nobody is teasing this elephant out into the room. None of the gun owners associations have this difficult conversation with them. I am not concerned about being corporately correct. I don't mind breaking eggs to make an omelette. And it's time that somebody teased the elephant into the room in this debate. Because if we beat it next year, if we don't chase them away permanently, they will be back in a year or two after that. Again, putting lipstick on a pig, bringing the same bill with lipstick on. So, thank you for opening that, Nick. I needed to say that. I needed to get that off my chest. Andy?
There we are, back again. Sorry, I had to unmute. Just a couple, another little thing, and I know it's going back to your analysis paralysis. The concept of the firearm license validity going from 10 years to 5 years, simultaneously the competency certificate, and the problem being that when the competency certificate needs to be renewed, your ballistic tests need to be done all over again. So please trot your entire safe down to the police station, carry them into the police station, and leave your car protected for what remains in the vehicle. It's an impossible feat, even if you only have the 6 that they allow you to have.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. And going back to what one of the other guys said earlier on, is one of the ways that we should be considering, in my opinion, of pushing back is to say, yeah, we're with you. The law does need to change 100%. We're with you 100%. That is common ground. However, this is what we want. We want the Constitution to change to embed the right for a citizen to own.
Yeah. I think that those are two very valid points. Very valid points. Yeah. I'm looking at my meeting capacity here. Are we getting a bit more people coming in? But those are two very, very valid points, Andy. And I think Tabiso made the point earlier that it's irrational. What they have proposed is irrational. That's the issue. And the rationality is missing, and so is the enforceability. But thanks for that. And I think we are getting to just about the end of the questions. We've been going an hour and a half. It's probably a good time to start winding it down. I undertake to start uploading this onto Zoom. It will be available on the Safe Citizen Zoom channel. And I'm pleased to tell you all that my contact at BizNews. Chris Stein will be interviewing me next Monday, the 8th of December. I particularly asked for it, and she's able to accommodate it also on the 8th of December. And that gets us good views. The last BizNews one that I did during the week netted over 80,000 views. Let's see if we can drive this one to double. It'll be on Monday. And any of you, if you please go tonight, it takes you 3 minutes. Sign up to Safe Citizen, because you will get into my onto my email list, and I'm sending out an email on Sunday. Another email on Sunday that will have this video attached to it and some other factual information. So guys, those of you, particularly those that have joined recently, please just again look for Safe Citizen, safecitizen.co.za. Join there, because you'll get onto my mailing list, and you'll also get the links to join Dear South Africa. Dear South Africa is the best thing that has happened to the voice of the public around developing legislation in South Africa. There's absolutely no doubt. We've already got a reach into 1.5 million households, and those are big numbers. And now we need to talk. There are 83 participants here now. That can be 83 town hall meetings. Please send me a mail, say, Jonathan, I live in Bopeti, Kotsweti. We are 15 people in the village. Can we have a town hall meeting on Zoom? I'll be delighted. Absolutely delighted. Let's do it. And that's it. And John Martin Clark, thank you for joy. He's just coming in now. That's one of our most recent people. Sure, people are coming in still. Okay, guys. And then I just want to close off with that last comment that I had is let's start suggesting to people in government that they need to start working for the community and not against the community. And that the civil servants, the educated, degreed, highly paid civil servants that have been responsible for drafting this bill and bringing it into the public realm and developing it in secret with NEDLAC need to be called to account. Let's ask them, Civilian Secretariat and NEDLAC, have you got any sense of community safety and security? Have you got any sense of decency? Do you think that this act can in any way serve the public of South Africa, even the ones that don't ever want to own a gun? Do you think that it's going to keep them safe? Guys, on that note, I'm going to thank everybody, and we will wind this down. We need to be heard, we must be heard, and we will be heard. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonah.